Good morning and welcome back. Today's video I'm going to be swapping out a large skylight and replacing it with a smaller skylight with electric fan. So let's get inside and have a look at the job. Okay, so today's job's going to be changing out this skylight. I've just taken this surround off that you can see here. I've taken this away and that's off. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to fit a new skylight with an electric fan on it and a top that goes up and down if it rains, and this is it just here. It's considerably smaller than the hole in the roof, even though it's the largest one I can get, so we're going to have to work something out. Ideally we'd probably take the old skylight out, make sort of wooden strips along here, buy a piece of plastic for above and cut a hole out the centre of it to make an adapter plate, and the same underneath. It's a lot of work, and after a bit of measuring I found actually that the width between here and here is actually the width of the skylight. So what I'm thinking is maybe I can take this off, maybe trim this down a little bit here to the level of the roof, and actually fit the new skylight inside the old skylight. So in actual fact the old skylight will act as the adapter plate. The reason we're getting rid of this is partly it doesn't get much air in. Also, even though we probably all enjoy in our motorhomes a pitter-patter of rain on the roof, this not so much. It's if you could have tinny plastic, it's like tinny plastic. It makes a really horrible noise and you just start sleeping through. It's really noisy when it rains. Whereas this one here, a bit more size, I think it's going to be a great improvement. We're going to get a lot more air and ventilation coming through the fan, adjust to the temperature. So I'm hoping it to be a great improvement to get cool air from outside on cool nights straight onto us on the bed, so we can actually get a decent night's sleep. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this top bit out here and see actually if the new skylight slots inside first before I do any cutting or anything, because obviously once I start cutting there's going to be no going back. Okay, so I've climbed up onto the top of the motorhome. As far as I can see here, it looks like these are just got pins with E-clips on. So I'm going to pop these E-clips off, take the pins out and see then if I can take this top off. Okay, so that was fairly easy. The 4 clips came off easy, push the pins out and the top of the skylight's off. So I'm going to go and get the new skylight and see if that slots into that hole. Okay, so that slots in quite well all the way around. I think if I do cut it along the bottom here, this will then sit flush onto here, and it'll just be a case of sealing the new skylight onto the old one. So let's go and have a quick look from inside. Okay, so that looks like that's probably going to work. I mean, I'd like to get it all done and completed, but if I only just manage to get the actual fan in before I go away this summer and don't manage to get it finished off on the inside, as long as it's sealed and it's working, I don't really mind. I can do the rest when I get back. Okay, so I've got set up down here with an extra ladder and everything, taking the new skylight out of the slot. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to trim along the way along the bottom here, so when the new skylight slots inside, it's going to fit flush to here, and then I can seal it down onto that, and basically the old skylight will make the adapter plate. I'll quickly go back down the ladder and I'll show you what I'm going to use to cut it. Okay, so all I've got is this narrow wrist 2mm metal cutting disc I could find. I searched online to try and get a saw disc, so something probably like a hacksaw disc attachment to go onto the disc cutter, but I couldn't find anything. All I could find was like a disc with big teeth in, which would have just tore it apart and probably shattered the plastic. So we'll carefully have a go with this. It may melt it a bit, but other than that I think it'll be okay. Okay, so I've cut this piece out with a disc cutter. There's a few melted bits around here and that. It got pretty hot, but it did the job. I'll put a piece of cardboard in here to stop the dust from falling in. I'm now going to sand down all this plastic around here, get down some good plastic and get the rough bits off, ready for the next stage. Okay then, so I just quickly offered up the ceiling fan skylight into the roof. It's pretty good. It's quite flush along here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go around to the inside and, well, I'm going to take it out first, go around to the inside and then sort out where I'm going to do the wiring. When I've done that, I think I'll take this fan up to the house and actually test it on the battery first, because this is Spain and what can go wrong will go wrong. Just to make sure it's actually working before I glue it in. Okay, so I'm going to drop back onto the inside and try and figure out a way to get the wires from the fan into the top of the locker. So there's a new ceiling fan in, just offered up in loosely from outside. Didn't know where I was going to be able to keep the fly screen here. It's got one here anyway, so I'm not really bothered, but it looks like I'm going to have to take these fly screens out, and then it looks like I'm going to have to try and put these cables through here in this foam between the plywood that holds the roof lining and the top of the roof. So I've got to try and get from there through into this locker, because there's 12 volt actually in this locker, or 12 volt supply. So I'm going to go around, take this skylight out from there, and then try and make a hole through. Okay, so that's the fly screen out. I didn't bother filming it, it's just a series of self-tapping screws. It's pretty self-explanatory. I've had a bit of cardboard in here at the minute because the sun's so bright, it's shining straight at my eyes. I've saved the fly screen, it's perfectly serviceable, despite having about 20 years worth of crap on it. I'll save it because if you've seen my other videos, I've got a large tablet down at the land which we're actually going to strip out and convert at some point. So it's got the same skylights as this, so it can be reused on there. Okay, so now I'm going to try and sort something out with these cables. Okay, so I can't really get you in the locker to see, but I've drilled up with a drill up through the ceiling of the motorhome in this locker here. Goes without saying, but I'll say it anyway. Super careful, take your time when you drill through the ceiling. The last thing you want is to go straight through your ceiling and then straight through the top of your roof. Okay, I've done that. So I've done that. I've managed to get this drill bit through here to make a hole through the foam to the top of the locker there. And now you can see I've actually managed to get the draw cord thrown through. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take the skylight up to the house. I need to extend the wires, check that it's working, or I may even remove the wires completely and put new ones in from source. I'll see what that's like. So let's get up to the house and check that out. Okay, so what I'm doing now is I'm just going to measure the original wires there. They're 1mm. What I've done is I've gone inside and I've sourced some more wire. Yeah, make sure it's the same width again, 1mm again, so I can extend these wires. Also, what I should do is I should take these two wires. You'll see they're the same length. I will cut one shorter, purely because when I've soldered them, I will put shrink pipe on them, so that they're sealed and they don't touch. But if you stagger them and the joints aren't in line, then there's no chance of them making contact negative to positive. So yeah, want to be cut shorter. So we'll end up with sort of that affair there, and there's no chance then, no matter what happens, of the shrink coming off it, or rubbing off, and the negative and the positive connecting. Okay, so then I'll solder that and I'll bring you back in. Okay, so I've soldered both of those. They're staggered. I'm going to just slide some 1L heat shrink on first. There. And there, and just heat them up. And then, just for good measure, we're going to stick another layer, bolts and braces, over the top, just to make sure. Okay, that's that done. I'm going to get a battery out here and test the fan before we go and fit it in the caravan. Okay, so that's the wires connected up to a small battery. I'll just power on the remote. I suppose we just hit fan. Okay, so that's safe to say that's working then. I'm not going to try and lift the flap up automatically. I'll chance that. The main thing is the fan's working. Okay then, we'll call that a success and we'll get it down to the motorhome and get it fitted. Okay, so I've sanded down all these surfaces around the skylight. This is old 20-year-old plastic, so it's all yellowed. So I'll sand it down to good new plastic, so I've got something good to key to. What I'm going to use is this sealant. I know it's got a picture, sort of a construction scene on it, but this is my go-to sealant for automotive things, really. It's a really strong glue. It's a good sealant, and it's also got a lot of flex. We can have temperature differences between sort of 20 or even 30 degrees difference from direct sunlight to nighttime temperatures. So we need a high level of flexibility if it's not to crack. There's been other various sealants used on this fan, which I'll show you in a bit, which you can see how they've reacted to the sun, and it's not good. So I'm going to apply the sealant, and I'm going to glue this skylight in place. See here some sort of acrylic sealant's been used and it's just come away and cracked. At some point before I have this resprayed, I'm going to have to remove all this, cut all this out and redo it with a polyurethane sealant, because that could be painted over, so that'll work fine there. All the bits here you can see it's just not being done very well. And we've also got trims up here where these trims have been stuck on, and I think this is probably mastic. So it never really sets, so when it gets really hot this goes really soft like tar, and this trim, you can see it's started to come away at the top here. Okay, so that's the skylight in. I've given it a quick wipe around here with the sealant, but I'm going to wait till it's dry. It'll trim off a lot easier with a sharp blade afterwards. Quite happy with it up to now, the skylight. There's a bit of bare metal here. I would like to plastic trim over the top of that to hide that, but at the end of the day it's on the roof, who's going to see it? Also worthy of note is I've hinged it with this end pointing towards the cab, just in case I forget to close it. At least it stands some chance of the wind not getting underneath it and blowing it off. Okay, that's it for today. It's starting to get really hot here. We're getting to sort of low 40s now. I'm going to leave that overnight to set that skylight before I start messing around with the trims on the inside. So that's it for today, and I'll bring you back in tomorrow. Okay, so that's the new ventilated skylight with the trim back on. This is on plan C actually, putting this trim in. Originally what I wanted to do was put this outer trim on first, and then screw the inner trim in through it afterwards, so that it wouldn't slip straight through. But when I did that, there was a gap between here and the fan, so that wasn't going to work. Plan B was then screw this one in first, and then screw this one in first, and then put this one in afterwards. But the problem with that is with no ceiling, because the hole being too big, no ceiling to stop this from going right up, it just screwed right up into there. So then I thought I could put some spacers in, which I thought was going to be fiddly. In the end, what I ended up settling to do was I actually glued, using the polyurethane sealant, this new trim to the original trim, and then screwed it up. And as you can see, that's worked perfectly. There's no gap here, and it looks fairly tidy. It's a slightly different colour. If when I'm laid in bed it starts to shout at me and annoy me, I shall probably take it off and use some plastic primer and plastic paint and paint it all the same colour. So in the end, the wires, as you saw, went through here into the top of the locker. I run them along the top of the locker here, right to the end into this corner, and I dropped them in and I connected them actually to that light. Just one thing you should be careful of: no matter what you connect it in, you connect it into a 12-volt system somewhere, please make sure that the wires you connect in are at least the same gauge, or better still a thicker gauge than the fan wires. Otherwise you run the risk of overheating and it getting burnt out. This light here actually is surprisingly thick. It looks like it's like 2.5mm cable, which is well oversized for a lighting system. But nevertheless, that suited me great, because it's also bigger than the wires in the fan. I've also wired in with thinner wires a USB port on the underside of here, on both sides, one for me, one for Anthea, so we can plug our devices in. Okay, so I think that's basically it. So what I'm going to do is I'll quickly just run you through the controls to show you what it does. Okay, I don't know how well this is going to come up on camera, so I'll find some better light. But this is the remote, so we'll switch the remote on. Okay, now we can raise the skylight up and down. So hang on, that's up. See that going up there, and it's got the manual. Hang on, the manual cog here for an emergency. If obviously it fails, you can shut it again. This actually also comes with a rain sensor on the outside, so if it rains, it'll automatically shut itself. Okay, let's try the fan then. So we're going to power up. You could set this fan on blow or suck, so extract the air, bad warm air, or blow in fresh air. That's it's got 10 speeds. This comes up as 10%, so 20, 30, 40. Okay, that's half speed. 60, 70, 80, 90, 100. Obviously that's a bit noisy for sleeping with, but if you wanted to move some air quick to cool it down, that's great. And we're early morning here now. It's going to be 40 degrees today here. That's blowing in some nice cool morning air. So if you had that on just ticking over at night, I think that would be great. Okay, so I'll shut that off. Okay, and if I power off, then the cover should go down again. And there it comes. It's quite slow, but I mean, what I'm going to do is I will do a review probably on this later, but I'm not a huge fan of out-of-the-box reviews on this sort of thing, purely because it's the sort of thing that needs to stand the test of time. And I fell foul in the past of buying things based on an out-of-the-box review on YouTube, only to find, you know, a few weeks down the line it wasn't actually any good. Okay, so I'll just quickly show you the from the outside, and then we'll call it a day. Okay, so I'm up on the outside now, so I'm going to switch the power on. Should still work from here. Yep, power's on. Let's try it up. Okay, that's fully up. And I'll just quickly blast the fan on so you can start moving from there. Okay. Put straight up to full. It's full power. I think we'll probably have this on about 20%. That's 20%. That's a nice speed there. I don't know if you can see it there, but just the green strip there, that's actually the rain sensor. So if rain drops on there, this cover will automatically close. Okay, so there's nothing much more to do. That's done. I'm going to let the ceiling go hard over the next coming weeks. I may trim this off just a little bit with a blade, but at the end of the day, you know, it's tidy enough on top here where no one's going to see it. Okay, so that's a tutorial video on how to fit a smaller skylight into an oversized skylight into a larger hole. Hopefully it'll be of some use for somebody who's experienced the same problems. If you enjoyed the video or the video's been of use to you, please hit like and subscribe. We've got a lot of return viewers come to the channel who aren't subscribing. It does actually hurt the channel, so really appreciate it if you could hit that subscribe button. Okay, so thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.